All right, we are on the play for round number 3. Our hand is fine. Yeah, this is fine. I'll keep. Obviously, no green source, no scales, but, I mean, a fine hand otherwise. We got some overseer action. Get this guy going. Suspend Ancestral. So probably blue-white. We will see, though. Another Ancestral, another Island. All right. Hopefully no Spell Snare, I guess, but I have to be worried about Wraths as well. So I want to get a Hangerback Walker resolved before that's too late, but I also want a Ravager. So let's go Ravager first, Walker next turn. Rather than like going way over the top with like multiple Overseers. Sure. So still could be different stuff. It doesn't have to be blue-white. Could be like some kind of Blue Moon strategy. Ancestral Vision in a Blue Moon deck would indicate probably that they weren't using any kind of combo kill. Field of Ruin, yeah, still makes me think blue-white, but doesn't have to be. All right, so I suspect that they might go field into path on this turn. That is my best guess. I think I still need to play the Hangerback Walker up front. Yeah, I will. If something happens to my Ravager in combat, I want to have this to put it on. Alright, guess we go to combat this time. Now, obviously, if it's Terminus, this whole Hangerback Walker thing, it's not going to do a lot for me, unfortunately. But there's really nothing I can do about that. I don't think I want to be more aggressive here just because we could get Terminus. Because if I'm more aggressive here and then we get I guess it's actually insane for me to animate this and eat it, right? Because I just actively don't want my opponent to get a land here. Even though I need green mana, I'm happy to sinkhole them. Yeah. It's pretty great for us. That way I don't have to worry about stuff like Terminus. All right. Could be opt Terminus. Okay, opponent just packs it in. I was going to say, assuming that they have Path, I'm supposed to animate Inkmoth Nexus, I think. And there's really nothing they can do. Yeah. All right, well, they pack it in. And we will go to board here. Against blue-white, I have to worry about Stony Silence. They have some other stuff like Detention Sphere or whatever, but Pithing Needle, I guess, is also okay. But predominantly, we're concerned about Stony Silence. None of these are serious concerns. I don't hate the proliferate effects here, so I'm not going to go immediately to cutting those. Welding jar is in a weird spot because my opponent will very likely have some amount of either Supreme Verdicts or, you know, whatever else. I guess if it's Wrath of God, Welding Jar doesn't help either. So it's really only Supreme Verdict. And these days they're pretty likely to predominantly have Terminus. Not every list, but most. So I think I'm likely to shave on Welding Jars against a deck I expect to largely be pathing me and using Terminus. Obviously, I can still use this to do other things, but I don't need to accelerate Opals quite as much in this matchup. I would much rather get some of these going. I think I can actually shave the Sparring Construct here. Again, I'm not trying to be quite as fast. I guess the animation modules, this is probably the matchup for them to shine, right? I just feel like this deck is probably never really using this first brick of text. Probably never really paying to get servos. Meaning that this matchup is not actually where it shines. It's more like it shines against like chalices and stuff like that. I guess chalice isn't even very good against us. It's okay, but it's probably not really what it's for. So I think I do want more of these though. Stony Silence is a real beating. All right. Why don't we do that? Leave one animation module and a throne. Let's make it 2 animation modules. No. Throne is good against the path deck. Let's make it 2 thrones. I want to be able to sack my hangerbacks and arcbounds. I guess it's really just those though, right? So maybe it was 1 and 1. Yeah, I probably should have tried 1 and 1. My preview window got a little out of whack here. Moto does absolutely love for my windows to be moved arbitrarily. So I apologize if that window gets a little bit off center here and there. I have to continuously move it just about every match. So I do my best though. Opponent deciding whether or not to play first. I suspect when they get to their keyboard, they may take the play. That is my best guess. It's really interesting to see this modular affinity deck that's been around, this Hardened Scales Affinity deck. It's been around for a little while, right? It's seen some attention here and there in Modern, but never has really come to the forefront of the format as something that people were realistically very interested in, particularly over regular Affinity. Affinity's been quite unpopular in Modern for a while now, which is unusual for the format. Affinity's always been one of the mainstays. So it's interesting to see this deck jump up, suddenly get a lot of attention, and maybe fill that gap. The Mox playoff this past weekend, seeing 3 7-0 lists of this archetype was, I think, a pretty big surprise to a lot of people. Not everybody. Not the people who played it at the PT. I'm sure they probably weren't surprised to see that. But I think the attention, I think the couple lists at the PT might have even spurred a little bit of a re-interest in it, leading to the 7-0 at the Mox. But really interesting to see 3 copies hit that 7-0 and I think the deck is going to get, at least in the short term, a lot more popular. You're going to start seeing it a lot more often. We'll see if it stays interesting to people over a longer term, but for now, I think it will regain a lot of interest. Looks like my opponent has disconnected. The fact that we just got that message, though, probably means that they're near reconnection, since it usually takes a while for the disconnection message to appear. If they don't show up pretty soon here, though, I can pause our recording here. But in the interim, like I said, I think it's an interesting archetype to jump back up. I'm excited to see if it can bring Affinity back to the forefront of the format, since it's been kind of lurking in the shadows for a while now. I think particularly having access to all these Nature's Claims and natural states is a huge boon to playing a list like this, whereas a traditional Affinity list, of course, would not have that. Our opponent rejoined here. And that can help a lot against, beating Stony Silence, but it can also help a lot against other things, playing against Bogles or playing against, KCI or whatever else. Playing the Pseudo Mirror. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for that card to make a big difference. So other than just your main game plan of going really big, really quickly, and just going over the top of what everyone else is doing, you also have a more reasonable, interactive piece of sideboard tech, as opposed to just trying to ignore Stony Silence, playing Aether Grids and stuff like that. So our opponent does choose to play first, so we get to look at a hand of Arcbound Steel Overseer Ravager again. I think this is fine. Yeah, I mean, we've got, again, it's not crazy. It doesn't have a Hardened Scales, but we've got Nature's Claim to beat Stony Silence, hopefully, and a reasonable hand of dudes otherwise. So I'm happy to keep this and go Arcbound into Steel Overseer again, into Ravager, and then Throne, assuming we don't find anything more interesting to do than that. Opponent is still deciding on their hand. They keep 7. We'll keep 7. Let's see what they lead on here. They do lead on a Colonnade. We'll stick with the Arcbound Worker after drawing another Overseer, so don't think that second Overseer is going to change what we're doing a lot. Probably are still going to want to get the first Ravager down before the second Overseer. Opponent suspends another Ancestral. Geez, I wonder how many they're playing. Post-board against the aggressive deck, too. You probably shave on them somewhat. All right. Whoops, not this guy. We're going to stick with the Overseer, as we said originally. Get in for 1 with the Worker. Opponent's vision ticks down to 3, and we'll see what they have on turn 3. Not a lot that we're really worried about going horrifically wrong this turn. Again, the things we're most scared of are paths and termini, terminuses, whatever your preference may be. Opt main phase. So this has to be that they're looking for lands here. They did scry to the top, so I imagine we'll see that land play, but opt main phase when our opponent would likely prefer to look for a terminus on our turn has to mean that they're a little bit land light here. Okay. So now we get to play both Ravager and Steel Overseer. I have to be worried about a Wrath somewhat, and I have no way to capitalize, but I need to make commitments to the board, and I don't really have a way to efficiently play around that anyway, so. Ooh, maybe a Spell Snare. Or a path for this? I don't think they would want to path this. Okay, we're just letting it resolve. So if they did Terminus, is there any reason I would prefer these things to be in my yard instead of the bottom of my library? Maybe the Arcbound Worker but I'd definitely rather the Ravager be there. So we're going to kill in a Blink Moth now. Opponent doesn't want to get Sinkholed again, I suppose. All right, untapping. Feels good, man. So, I mean, if my opponent had Path, would they have used it? I think they would have. It's possible they die to the Overseer then, but I'm probably going to go in on the Inkmoth Nexus. But then I'm a lot worse against Wrath too, so maybe not. Maybe not. All right, well, we start here. Play this. I mean, they could hit Op Terminus, but it would be blind as well. Negate. But now they're tapped out. Let's see here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, they're just dead. So this will go up to 5. And then up to 8. Then we sack it. I mean, I can sack more, but not necessary. No double gut shot. Looks like probably no double gut shot. All right, I'll see you in just a moment for the next round.